Well, staying with the world reaction to the death of the Duke of Edinburgh, and the people of Vanuatu Island on the South Pacific Ocean are among the most remote of them. This is the Prince Philip movement, a religious sect in Vanuatu who revere Prince Philip as a god. They say he is the most important person ever to have recognised their existence and spent decades rehearsing dances for his visits to the island. Well, Kirk Huffman is a research associate for the Australian Museum at Sydney University, an expert on the Prince Philip movement group. Thank you very much for coming on the programme.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So could you just start by telling us how people there will be reacting to this sad news?
Well, the Prince Philip movement peoples are restricted to its peoples in the interior of the southwestern part of the island of Tanna in southern Vanuatu, where there are several hundred followers of the movement, and they were having meetings, I think it was yesterday, with their chiefs to decide how they will commemorate the funerary rituals for Prince Philip, and I think those rituals will possibly be taking place tomorrow, their time. I imagine there'll be a number of ritual dances. There'll be possibly a procession with objects that they have, because Prince Philip, since the late 1970s, has actually been writing to them. They have letters from him. They have photographs of him, which they've kept. Some of them are a little bit cyclone damaged now, because there have been at least 2 major cyclones through that area of the island of Tanna since the late 1970s.
I see. And Kirk,
but there's a lot of respect for him.
Kirk, could you just tell us, how did it start?
It's part of a centuries-old prophecy where these peoples in this one particular area of the island of Tanna have been looking for a spiritual version of one of their mountain gods or spirits who went overseas. And it wasn't until who was supposed to come back, and it wasn't until the 1970s that their interest focused on the possibility that Prince Philip might be the sort of recycled version of that spirit. The interesting thing that British people might find out about this movement is that the movement is not concentrated on Prince Philip as a representative of, say, the British royal family, because in their belief system, his original spirit, or he, is actually from their island. He's from Tanna. He's from Tanna. And so, and Jesse happens at the moment to, until recently, have been living in England for a while, so to speak. So that's the twist in the tale there.
I see. That is a twist. And where does that leave, for example, Prince Charles? Is there any likely relationship there now or not?
Well, they respect Prince Charles. 2 members of the movement actually met Prince Charles, I think 2 or 3 years ago, when he visited the capital of Vanuatu briefly on an official visit through the Pacific. And they have great respect for him. How the movement will actually react in that respect is another thing. It's up to them to decide whether they will focus on Prince Charles or whether they will continue as, I think it will continue as the Prince Philip movement, and with great respect for Prince Charles, but I don't think it will become the Prince Charles movement, so to speak. It'll continue under the sort of the heading of the Prince Philip movement, because the good thing about cultures in Vanuatu is you don't really die. You just sort of get recycled, or you eventually reappear in another form, and maybe a different sort of skin color or something like that, or whatever.
I see.
It will continue in some form or other.
Just on that, could you just give us a flavour of what life is like for people there?
It's very good. It's actually better than in Europe or the US or in Australia. Quality of life is very good. They're on their own lands. They raise all their own food. None of them are in debt. They're very healthy. They have a very healthy lifestyle. It's very traditional. It's a self-sustaining society. They're a sustainable society, and I think if they were suddenly forced into development, it wouldn't into so-called development, it wouldn't necessarily be beneficial to them. They're traditional peoples. These are traditional peoples that their focus is on their traditional life. And the Prince Philip thing is only one aspect of their traditional life. It's not their major focus, because they have other spirits and stuff that they deal with.
I see.
But they're one of the many traditional societies in the world that basically the modern world doesn't really know much about them.
Doesn't know much
about these sorts of societies.
Are they able to continue living in the way that they choose to, or is that way a way of life under threat?
Well, I mean, if people trying to keep pushing development onto these places, those kinds of lifestyles are under threat, and it's a real shame. It's a real pity, because the thing is, those are the kind of societies that the modern world can actually learn from to try and learn how to be more sustainable. You know, they shouldn't be sort of changed in a way. We should be all out there sending people there to learn how to live in a sustainable fashion and take advice from them. They're the teachers. They're the real survivors. They've been around for hundreds of years.
Kirk,
you know.
Kirk, it's absolutely fascinating to listen to you. Thank you very much for coming on and lending us your expertise. Thank you. That's Kirk Huffman.
My pleasure. My pleasure.